How you doing? Today, we're talking about peptic ulcer disease with all might. Today, we're talking about peptic ulcer disease. When you talk about peptic ulcer disease, you have to think of it as stress ulcers or any disease of the stomach that can eventually lead to or put you at risk for cancer. When we talk about the things that put you at risk for gastric cancer, one of the big things is peptic ulcer disease, especially chronic peptic ulcer disease. Now, this is different from reflux. Reflux typically is stuff that goes from your stomach into your esophagus that can cause ulcers in your esophagus, versus gastric ulcers, when the acid in your stomach that is produced in your stomach to help you digest food causes a problem. Before we start talking about peptic ulcer disease, we got to do a small anatomy review. Food goes down all might's mouth into the esophagus, first, second, third portion of the esophagus. And right here where his chest is, we'll call that the duodenum. That is, call that the GE junction, not the duodenum. Duodenum's way down here. So the GE junction, there is a little sphincter here, but that sphincter is not right at your diaphragm. It needs to be about 4 to 6 centimeters below. Once you get past the GE junction, you get into the stomach. Cardio's first part, fundus, basically is the upper top part, and then go into the body of the stomach. Then you get to where this transition line, you can't really see it, but you have a change in the way the stomach looks, and that distal part is called the antrum. Once you get from the antrum, you get to the pylorus. Get to the pylorus. The pylorus is the separation between the antrum and the duodenum, or the stomach and the first portion of the duodenum, small intestine. Then you have first, second, third, fourth portion of the duodenum. When we start talking about gastric ulcer / cancer or peptic ulcer disease, we're really talking about ulcers. There are 5 basic types. It used to be 4, but we separated out 4 to 4 and 5. Number 1, lesser curve of the stomach. So that's the lesser curve or small curve on the stomach. 2, type 2, combined gastric and duodenal ulcers. So there are 2 types of ulcers in type 2. So usually in the antrum, and then right here in the first portion of the duodenum. Type 3 ulcers are typically right here before the pylorus, right here in the antrum. And type 2 and type 3 are typically associated with increased acid production. Type 4, proximal stomach and the cardia. These used to be associated with drugs, but we separated it out. So like Goody's powder, chronic NSAID use, any type of medicine, including steroids, that can cause holes in the stomach or ulcers in the stomach, typically are referred to as type 5. The way I remembered in residency is I remember type 2 and 3, 2 types of ulcers. Type 3 were right there in the antrum, and they were always acid associated. Type 1 and type 4 were not associated with it, and type 5 is associated with medication. Peptic ulcer disease used to be called gastric ulcer disease, and then duodenal ulcer disease was duodenal ulcer disease. We kind of grouped them together for 2 reasons. One, type 2 and type 3s are the most common types of ulcers. The other thing is that a duodenal ulcer and a gastric ulcer, especially type 2s and 3s, have one thing in common: H. pylori. It's a bacteria that grows in your stomach, puts you at risk for ulcers. Whether you are type 2 or type 3, whether you're gastric or duodenal, the treatment initially is the same. We treat you with these medicines here, but we'll talk about that later. Before we start getting into peptic ulcer disease and treatment, we first have to define what peptic ulcer disease is. Peptic ulcer, defect in the gastric or duodenal mucosa that extends through the muscularis mucosa. That essentially means that it's something that is not superficial. Separated into 2 types: gastric stomach, duodenal, small intestine. Gastric ulcers are worse with food. Duodenal ulcers are traditionally relieved by food, but this is even can be broken down more, and distal gastric ulcers are relieved by food versus gastric ulcers are worse with food. The main reason is bile. When you put food in your stomach and you have an ulcer, once you start releasing bile, it coats the ulcer and makes it feel better. Versus if you don't have bile bathing that ulcer and you put food, you increase the acid, so it hurts more. With regards to the cause of peptic ulcer disease, we talked about this H. pylori bacteria. I'll show you a few pictures of them. That's probably up there on the list. Probably number one. I would say second is going to fall in between chronic NSAID use and stress. Stress ulcers is not just about having a death in the family, not being able to pay your bills, having 4 kids that are always asking for money, you're trying to feed them while living in a house with no air conditioning. It could also be from surgery. It could be from medical issues. It could be any type of stress on the body puts you at risk for developing peptic ulcer disease. That's one of the main reasons when you're in a hospital, you are put on Pepcid, Protonic, Zantac while you're there to help prevent ulcers. Things that put you at risk for peptic ulcer disease: smoking, alcohol, diet, genetic factors. Things that also put you at risk for gastric cancer: smoking, alcohol, diet, genetic factors. So you can see why a double dose of this turning into gastric cancer, that's why we put these two together. Now, complications of peptic ulcer disease, the most common is bleeding. That's the biggest reason that people come in the hospital for peptic ulcer disease. It's usually not pain, because pain is really more of a sign versus a complication of that sign, if it's ignored, is bleeding. Bleeding can be an upper GI bleed or a lower GI bleed. The reason I say lower is because if you have a massive upper GI bleed from a peptic ulcer, you can have blood coming out of your rectum. So we always check for a upper source anytime someone has melena, which is digested blood, dark tarry stools, or they throw up blood. If you have an ulcer that's chronically bleeding off and on, healing, breaking down, it can scar down your distal stomach, because again, we talked about type 2 and type 3's distal stomach, and cause a gastric outlet obstruction. When you have this, you're eventually going to have treatment, but that treatment also involves surgery because food can't go past. The next thing that we worry about is penetration or fistula formation. So once this ulcer starts to eat through the outer lining of the stomach or the duodenum, it can erode into other structures. Usually bleeding ulcers, especially massive bleeding ulcers in the duodenum, have penetrated through to the posterior aspect of the stomach into an artery called the GDA, or gastroduodenal artery. One of the ways to treat this, if it's bleeding, is to embolize it or stick something in that artery so that it doesn't bleed anymore, usually done by radiology or interventional cardiology. But if it doesn't erode into an artery, it can erode into the pancreas, it can erode into the liver, it can actually erode into the gallbladder, but it's a little different pathophys, but it can form fistulas. Now, all of these are bad, but the most dangerous complication probably is a perforated gastric ulcer or a perforated duodenal ulcer. Most perforated ulcers are gastric, and they happen on the anterior aspect of the stomach. Duodenal ulcers typically erode, they can perforate, but they typically erode posteriorly and get into the GDA and cause bleeding. Perforated gastric ulcers, you have to do what's called a Graham patch to fix it. Bleeding duodenal gastric ulcers, you end up having to sometimes go and oversew them, but 80% of the time the GI guy can fix the bleeding with clips, injections, other techniques. If that doesn't work, rescope them, and they can control it the second time 80% of the time. Gastric outlet obstruction requires surgery. Penetration fistula is just a pain in the butt to deal with. With regards to, or pain in the stomach, that's a better way to look at it. With regards to the diagnosis of peptic ulcer disease, history and physical is always the first line. After a history and physical that gives you a suspicion of a peptic ulcer, upper endoscopy, EGD, is the first line of diagnosis. It's a good way to look at it, see exactly what's going on. CT scan can pick up gastritis rarely. You can do upper GIs with contrast. They will sometimes pick up a penetrating ulcer. If you have a high clinical suspicion of it being perforated, you would not do an endoscopy. You would then do an upper GI with contrast to see what's going on, because if you're using an EGD scope, esophageal gastroduodenoscopy scope, to look and you have a perforation, you're just going to blow a lot of air in here. So we try not to do that. Once you have the EGD scope in there, or the endoscopy scope in, you always want to biopsy a peptic ulcer, because there is a likelihood of this being a very chronic problem. If it's chronic, you run the risk of malignant transformation. If we get in there, do an EGD, you look and you see a large ulcer, the first thing we do is do an endoscopy, do a biopsy. Treat it, whether it's with H. pylori treatments or just protonics or Pepcid, omeprazole, any of those. You then repeat a repeat an EGD in 4 to 6 weeks or 2 to 3 months to make sure that it's healed. The main reason we want to make sure that it heals is, again, cancer doesn't heal. If you have abnormal cells, they won't be able to repair themselves to a normal structure. So you repeat that EGD, what you will see is that ulcer there, but a lot smaller. If you can't get that ulcer completely treated, there is an indication for surgery, because the best treatment for the majority of gastric cancers is early surgery. Now, to prevent you from getting to a gastric cancer, we first have to treat your peptic ulcer disease. Treatment of peptic ulcer disease. H. pylori, again, that is our first target. There are 2 types of treatments, Prevpac and Helidac. Triple therapy, quadruple therapy. Sometimes if you are allergic to amoxicillin, you do quadruple therapy. If you're allergic to tetracycline, you would do not quadruple, but you do that. So we go back and forth. Unfortunately, both of these are usually not covered by your insurance, so we actually have to break them down and call them in separate, and then they cover them, which makes no sense, but that's insurance. The other thing you need to do is avoid NSAIDs. Avoid not targeting a brand, but stay the heck away from Goody Powder. Goody Powder is the #1 source of ulcers that I've treated in the past that have perforated outside of cocaine use. So it's Goody Powder is #1, cocaine #2, Goody Powders is probably #3. Then you have steroid use and stuff like that. So any medicine that puts you at risk for perforation, you also want to avoid. The main way we figure out whether or not you have pylori is to do what's called a CLO test. That's during your endoscopy, your upper endoscopy. We will biopsy part of the stomach and look for H. pylori bacteria. The other thing that you can do is a breath test. So you can do a breath test looking for urea, I think is what it is, to see if it's H. pylori positive. If you're positive, we treat you. Even if we're negative and you have ulcers, we still treat you, because we know that's one of the most common causes of ulcers, and we're trying to prevent you from developing gastric cancer. Now, gastric cancer. Usually these patients present with abdominal pain that is nonspecific and weight loss. The reason they present with weight loss is for 2 reasons. One, their stomach doesn't function like it's supposed to, so it used to could expand and contract when you eat. Now, once that ulcer has turned into a gastric cancer, it doesn't expand anymore, so you're not able to eat as much as you used to. You start to lose weight because of that, plus cancer requires a lot of energy. So your metabolism has increased because it's feeding the cancer cells, but your ability to tolerate food is decreased. So that's why they present a lot of times with unexplained weight loss. H. pylori, nitrous compounds for preserving foods, obesity, smoking. Same thing that puts you at risk for developing an ulcer also puts you at risk for gastric cancers because the ulcers are typically precursors to cancers. Again, diagnosis, same as ulcer, EGD with a biopsy. Surgical management is first line for the majority of gastric cancers. There are signet cells, adenos, squamous cells that are due to reflux, maltomas, there are GIST tumors, there are a whole bunch. Outside of GIST tumors, early surgical intervention is necessary. It's true in GIST, but GIST is a little different tumor. I may or may not do a lecture about that. It'll be pretty quick. Probably just do one when I have a good example of one or a video. With regards to the resection of gastric cancers, again, these typically present late. So the patients have very large tumors. The majority of time they have to undergo a total gastrectomy. When you remove someone's stomach completely, we pretty much swing up small intestine to the esophagus and it works okay. We have to create a small pouch sometimes, but these patients have to eat about 6 meals a day as opposed to eating 3 large meals. If you catch it early or it's in the lower part of your stomach, sometimes you can get away with a partial gastrectomy. With regards to gastric cancer, as long as your margin is negative and we have at least 5 centimeters, it's reasonable. The biggest thing here is your lymphadenectomy, or removing lymph nodes at the time of surgery. R1, R2, D1, D2. The important thing is not to just cherry pick lymph nodes around the stomach. You want to get down to the celiac axis. You want to dissect out those lymph nodes that are accessory drainage lymph nodes from around the stomach. That gives you a better long-term survival. That also gives you a better idea of whether or not the cancer is spread. Also remember, the majority of time, these cancers are spread at the time of diagnosis, definitely in the lymph nodes, sometimes to other areas. That's it. There's not much more to it. Gastric cancer, people make their living off of talking about gastric cancer and treating it. So we could do hours of lectures on gastric cancers, but this is a pretty good overview. The one thing that you got to remember with a gastric cancer, though, is early diagnosis is key. If you can't diagnose it early, make sure you prevent someone from getting it by diagnosing their peptic ulcer disease early as well. If you believe you have burning in your stomach, go see your gastroenterologist, go see your surgeon, go see your primary doctor. They will treat you with protonics. If it's really bad, not just protonics, prilosec, a bunch of other stuff, but if it's really bad, they will get you to a GI doctor or a general surgeon. They can scope your stomach, make sure you're okay, check you for H. pylori. If you have H. pylori, treat it, and then follow you closely for gastric cancer. If you have gastric cancer, get surgery early so we can get you taken care of and keep you around for a while. That's pretty much it. You know the routine. Call me, DM me, email me, whatever, if you have any questions. All right, guys, take care. Thank you.